A single spice sitting at the back of your kitchen cabinet might be doing something to your body that no supplement bottle can promise. Not a pill, not a powder, just a handful of small brown buds dropped into hot water. Doctors have started fielding more questions about this one drink than almost any other home remedy in the last year. And the reason is simple. The science behind it is real, even if the internet version of the story has gotten a little out of hand. Tonight, we are going to separate what is actually proven about clove water from what is exaggeration, so you know exactly what this drink can and cannot do for your body. We'll walk through the real research behind each claimed benefit, the honest strength of the evidence for each one, how to prepare the drink safely if you decide to try it, and who should stay away from it completely. Stick around, because the difference between the accurate version of this story and the version circulating online is bigger than you might expect. Cloves come from the dried flower buds of an evergreen tree, and for centuries, they have shown up in kitchens, dental clinics, and traditional medicine cabinets around the world. What makes them interesting to modern researchers is a compound called eugenol, which makes up a large share of the oil inside every clove. Eugenol is the same compound that gives cloves their sharp, warming scent, and it is also the reason dentists have used clove oil to numb sore gums for generations. When you steep cloves in hot water, eugenol and a handful of other plant compounds slowly move out of the bud and into the liquid, which is what turns plain water into something with measurable biological activity. Here is where most videos on this topic go wrong. They take laboratory findings done on concentrated clove oil or clove extract in a dish of cells and talk about them as if a mug of clove tea does the exact same thing in your body. It does not, at least not to the same degree. A few whole cloves simmered in water release only a fraction of what a standardized extract delivers in a research setting. That does not mean the drink is worthless. It means the real story is more modest and more interesting than the miracle cure version. And understanding that difference is exactly what will help you use this remedy sensibly instead of chasing an exaggerated promise. Let's start with what the evidence actually supports the most. Cloves rank among the highest antioxidant spices ever tested, and that is not marketing language. It shows up consistently across lab studies, measuring how well a substance neutralizes unstable molecules called free radicals. Free radicals are a normal byproduct of simply being alive, but when they build up faster than your body can clear them, they contribute to cellular wear and tear over time. Clove compounds, especially eugenol, are efficient at soaking up these free radicals in test tube studies. Whether that translates into a noticeable anti-aging effect from one nightly cup is not something researchers have proven in people, but the underlying antioxidant chemistry itself is well documented. Closely related is inflammation, and this is where eugenol has its strongest research backing. Laboratory studies have repeatedly shown that eugenol calms specific inflammatory pathways in cells, including some of the same enzymes targeted by common anti-inflammatory medications. Some of this research has even looked at eugenol's effect on inflamed tissue in the digestive tract, finding it can reduce markers of irritation in animal models of gut inflammation. This is why clove oil has such a long history in dentistry for sore, inflamed gums, and why researchers keep circling back to eugenol as a candidate for natural inflammation support. But most of this evidence comes from concentrated extracts applied directly to cells or tissue, not from drinking a diluted glass of clove-infused water. If you deal with mild, everyday inflammation, occasional joint stiffness, or general puffiness, this drink may offer gentle support, but it is not a replacement for treating a real inflammatory condition, and it should never replace medication prescribed for a diagnosed inflammatory disease. Now, here's what most people don't realize about the digestion claims. Cloves do have documented antimicrobial activity against certain bacteria linked to food-borne illness, and eugenol does appear to encourage the release of digestive enzymes in some studies. Traditionally, cultures across South Asia and the Middle East have used clove-infused water, or tea, after heavy meals specifically to ease bloating and settle the stomach. And this lines up with the modest evidence we have. If a warm cup after dinner helps you feel less bloated, that is a plausible, low-risk effect, not a stretch of the science. The liver story is one of the more genuinely promising areas of clove research, though it comes almost entirely from animal studies so far. Rodent studies have found that clove extract can reduce oxidative damage inside liver cells, protect against the kind of fat buildup within liver tissue that leads to long-term damage, and support the organ's natural repair process after stress from toxins or poor diet. Since your liver does the bulk of its detoxification and repair work while you sleep, there is a logical reason a small evening dose of antioxidant compounds could line up nicely with that overnight process. Human trials on this specific effect are still lacking, so think of it as an encouraging early signal rather than a settled fact, and definitely not a substitute for avoiding the things that actually damage your liver, like excess alcohol or unmanaged fatty liver disease. Blood sugar is where the research gets genuinely interesting, and also where a lot of viral content quietly stretches the truth. A real clinical pilot study, published in a peer-reviewed journal, tested a concentrated water-soluble clove extract, not a homemade tea, in 13 adults, some healthy and some with early blood sugar concerns. After 30 days of daily supplementation, both groups showed a meaningful drop in blood sugar spikes after meals. That is a legitimate, encouraging result, but it used a standardized extract at a measured dose, tested in a small pilot group without a placebo comparison. So it is not the same as saying a mug of boiled clove water will do this for you. If you have diabetes or take blood sugar medication, this is worth discussing with your doctor rather than assuming a home remedy can replace your treatment plan. This is where things become really important if you deal with seasonal congestion or a nagging nighttime cough. Eugenol has shown in laboratory research that it can calm the cough reflex and relax tightened airway muscles, which is part of why clove has shown up in traditional cold and cough remedies for so long. A warm clove drink in the evening, the same way warm tea in general soothes a scratchy throat, may offer some comfort here. Just don't expect it to treat asthma, bronchitis, or any diagnosed respiratory condition. Bone health and dental health both have real, if limited, science behind them. In laboratory and animal research, clove compounds have influenced the cells responsible for building and breaking down bone tissue, encouraging the cells that form new bone while slowing the cells that break it down. That is an interesting early finding for something as accessible as a kitchen spice, though it comes mostly from animal models, so it is nowhere near enough evidence to call it a bone treatment for conditions like osteoporosis. Dental research is on firmer ground. Multiple lab studies confirm that clove extract fights the specific bacteria responsible for tooth decay and can calm inflamed gum tissue, which is consistent with why eugenol has been used in dental practice for well over a century as a numbing agent for toothaches. Rinsing with or drinking clove-infused water is a reasonable, low-risk addition to an oral care routine, not a replacement for brushing, flossing, or regular dental checkups. The surprising part is how much nuance gets lost around cardiovascular claims. Eugenol has shown vessel relaxing or vasodilatory properties in lab and animal studies, alongside antioxidant effects that may help protect the lining of blood vessels. Early research suggests this could support healthy circulation and blood pressure over time. At the same time, cloves have a well-documented blood-thinning effect, which is exactly why anyone on blood-thinning medication, anyone with a bleeding disorder, and anyone preparing for surgery needs to be cautious, rather than treating this as a harmless daily habit. Sleep is one of the softer claims in circulation. Some of the aromatic compounds in cloves, including eugenol and beta-caryophyllene, have shown mild calming effects on the nervous system in animal research, which is a plausible mechanism for why a warm evening drink might help you unwind. But most of the sleep research so far comes from animal studies, not controlled human trials. And a large part of any benefit likely comes from the simple ritual of a warm, caffeine-free drink before bed, rather than the cloves specifically. That is still useful, just for a more ordinary reason than the science fiction version some videos suggest. Antibacterial activity is genuinely well supported, and this is one of the oldest, most consistent findings in clove research. Eugenol disrupts the cell membranes of several harmful bacteria in laboratory testing, weakening their structure until they can no longer survive or multiply, which is part of why cloves have been used as a natural preservative and folk remedy for infections for centuries, long before anyone understood the underlying chemistry. This applies most clearly to surface-level and digestive bacteria in lab settings, not to serious or systemic infections, which always need proper medical diagnosis and treatment rather than a home remedy. Weight management is a place where the claims usually run ahead of the evidence. Some animal and cell studies suggest clove compounds might support metabolism and reduce appetite signals slightly, but according to clinicians who have reviewed this trend, any effect on weight is indirect at best, working through better digestion and steadier blood sugar rather than any direct fat-burning mechanism. Treat this drink as a small supporting habit inside a healthy lifestyle, never as a weight loss method on its own. Skin health claims rely mostly on the antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties we already covered, plus some lab evidence that clove compounds can support collagen-producing cells. It is a reasonable, gentle addition to a skin-supportive diet, but a single nightly drink is unlikely to visibly change your skin on its own. Now for two claims that deserve the most caution of anything in this video. Some sources describe cloves as cancer protective because eugenol has triggered programmed cell death in isolated cancer cells in laboratory dishes. That is real published research, and it is scientifically interesting. It is also nowhere close to evidence that drinking clove water prevents or treats cancer in a living person, and no responsible source should imply otherwise. The same caution applies to claims about circulation and sexual function. A small body of animal research has looked at eugenol's effect on blood flow in that area, but this has not been established in human clinical trials, so it belongs in the category of early, unproven research, not a natural alternative to medical treatment. So, how should you actually make this drink if you decide to try it? Bring 2 cups of water to a boil, add 4 or 5 whole cloves, and let them simmer gently for about 15 minutes so the compounds have time to release into the water. Let it cool to a comfortable temperature, strain out the cloves, and drink it slowly. A little honey is fine if the taste is too sharp for you. Clinicians who study this trend generally recommend treating it as an occasional habit, a few evenings a week, rather than a strict nightly ritual, since cloves are potent and there is no evidence that more is better. A few groups should skip this drink entirely, or only try it after talking to a doctor first. That includes anyone who is pregnant or breastfeeding, anyone with a bleeding disorder, anyone taking blood-thinning medication, anyone scheduled for surgery in the near future, and anyone managing a digestive condition like ulcers or inflammatory bowel disease, since the essential oils in cloves can be irritating in that context. If you take medication for diabetes, check with your doctor before adding this in regularly, since the blood sugar effect, while promising, is real enough to interact with your treatment. It's also worth knowing what excessive intake can look like, because more is not automatically better with a spice this concentrated. Drinking large amounts of clove water regularly has been associated with digestive upset, including nausea, heartburn, and diarrhea, along with occasional allergic reactions, such as itching or skin irritation. Because of the blood-thinning effect we mentioned earlier, overdoing it can also raise the risk of unwanted bleeding, even in people who are not on blood-thinning medication. And because clove compounds can lower blood sugar, drinking too much, especially without eating, could theoretically push blood sugar lower than is comfortable in someone who is already prone to drops. None of this means an occasional cup is dangerous. It means treating a home remedy with the same respect you would treat any other substance that has a measurable effect on your body. The honest takeaway is this: clove water is not a miracle drink, and it is not a waste of time either. It sits in that reasonable middle ground occupied by most traditional remedies. A genuinely bioactive plant compound, a long history of real use, and a modern research base that is promising but still early on most of these claims. Used in moderation as one small piece of an otherwise balanced routine, it is a low-risk habit with a surprisingly solid scientific foundation behind at least a few of its benefits. Used as a replacement for medical care or consumed in excess because a video promised it would fix everything, it stops being helpful and starts being a risk. If you try it, pay attention to how your own body responds, keep the amount moderate, and loop in your doctor if you take medication or manage a health condition. That single habit of checking with a professional before leaning hard on any home remedy is honestly the most valuable takeaway in this entire video. And that's what changes everything about how we should be talking about remedies like this one. Not by throwing out every traditional habit as nonsense, and not by treating every viral claim as settled science, but by asking what the actual research says, how strong it really is, and where it still falls short. Clove water earns its place as a modest, low-cost habit worth trying if it appeals to you, built on real chemistry and a long history of traditional use, sitting somewhere between folk remedy and early-stage science. What it does not deserve is the exaggerated, cure-all reputation it has picked up online. Keep that distinction in mind the next time a video promises a single drink will transform your health overnight, whether it is about cloves or anything else, and you will be far better equipped to separate what is genuinely useful from what is simply good marketing.